Hello, hello. Welcome to the Beautiful Budget channel. I'm so happy that you're here. Today's topic is one of my favorites. It is savings buckets. And I want to walk you through today my favorite and my main way that I track savings efforts on pen and paper. And then I also have kind of some previews of potential new products for the full-size workbook that you're going to be the first to see, and I'll kind of show how I may be kind of bringing the new product into the mix for tracking savings buckets. So be sure to stay tuned for some peeks at what the new products are going to look like, because I've gotten some feedback that there's some interest in kind of cash envelopes or envelopes that would fit inside the full-size workbook. Because of course we've got the mini ones and those are 6-hole punched, and I've got 2 different sets that are sold in the Beautiful Budget shop for that size, but nothing for the full size. So anyway, we'll get to that. But I'm very excited. I love to talk about tracking savings because if you are like me, you are saving for many things at the same time. We have so much going on in our lives, right? We have homes that we own, cars that we have, we've got kids, we've got, an annual Amazon Prime subscription that we want to save up for. We've got kids' birthdays, we've got anniversaries. There's so many things. And to have just one account or one way of kind of keeping all of that together is not ideal, and it's not very organized. So I developed a tracker. This is a 2-page spread directly from the full-size Beautiful Budget workbook, watercolor floral edition. And this is an excellent way to track multiple savings efforts at the same time. So let me pull my workbook out from under here so we can see this, and I will zoom in. This is an annual tracker. So this is something that you would come back and fill in all 12 months of the year. And how it's kind of laid out is you've got a description over here on the far left of what the savings bucket is, and then a starting balance. Because it's possible that, maybe you've already got some savings set aside for car maintenance or home maintenance. And so you're going to, start using this tracker for 12 months. And wherever it is that you start, even if you start, July, August, September, maybe you don't start exactly in January because you don't have to, but your starting balance of whatever you've got going into the use of this tracker. On the far right, you have the goal amount for that bucket, 12-month goal, right? Because you're going to save for 12 months. Then you have, for every single savings bucket, you have 4 different things that you're going to be jotting down. I always tell people this tracker looks a lot scarier than it actually is. But this kind of this peach row up top is projected to save. This is where you're going to fill in January to December. What do you project to save so that you can reach your goal? And we'll go through an example in a second so that it's a lot easier to understand. But what do you project to save so that you can reach this goal? So of course, you'll total up all those amounts and you're going to want to meet or exceed that goal. Of course, that's the idea. But then month to month, as you're going about your budgets and you're coming back, you're doing your budget closeout, you circle back to this tracker and you're going to jot down the actual amount that you saved that month for that bucket. So that's that second row there. The next one is the amount that you spent. And this is a great change from the teal edition of the workbook to this edition, because this wasn't reflected in earlier editions of this tracker. And it is so important, right? Because we do dip into our savings for different things. We go and we get the oil change. So we use money from car maintenance. We go and, celebrate our anniversary, or we actually take that vacation. So we use some of the travel funds. So we need to be able to write down, well, what did we actually spend from that bucket that month, right? So it may be nothing, but maybe we did dip into it. So we need to make sure that's reflected. And then this last row is just keeping a running balance of what that bucket has in it all throughout the year. So that is the kind of idea for this tracker. And while I'm still zoomed in, I'll go ahead and just walk us through an example. The ultimate savings bucket, the most important savings bucket, is your emergency fund. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to use a savings bucket tracker, whether it's this one or a different one, make sure your emergency fund is on there, because that definitely is a savings effort. And in fact, it's the most important one that we have. So the goal there should be to save 3 to 6 months of necessary living expenses in your emergency fund. It's kind of a general rule to follow of, okay, how much should be in my emergency fund, right? So let's just do a quick example here. Just writing there in the far left, I'm writing down birthdays. And then let's say I don't have anything to start with as I begin to use this tracker, at least not for birthdays anyway. But I want to have maybe $500 over the course of the year. I want to save $500. Try to set a goal that you feel like will capture a good amount of what you think you can accomplish over a 12-month period. And this is a good point to note. When you are setting the goal, if you've never budgeted before, or if you're still kind of getting into a budgeting groove, it can be difficult to fill in this tracker. I'll just be honest. And that's okay. That's kind of your cue. Like, hey, let me get a budget or two underneath me so I can kind of see what do we have month to month that we can put towards savings. So $500. And let's say we want to spread that out over most of the year, because maybe birthdays in your family are pretty spread out. No single one costs too much money, right? So we're not talking like a few hundred just for one birthday, but a little something here and there. Some easy math to do here would be maybe $50 saved over 10 months. January to October, projecting to save $50 a month so that we can reach that $500 goal. So now these two are equal. That's what we want. Let's say I'm starting to use this workbook and this tracker in January. So we go through the month of January, we save just as we wanted to. So we save 50. And then let's say we don't actually dip into the bucket at all. So this amount spent would be 0. Now what we need to do is say, okay, well, what did we have going into this month? We had 0. What did we save? Let's add what we saved. Let's subtract what we spent, right? So we started with 0, saved 50, spent 0. So now we're at 50. So this last row here is just keeping a running balance of savings efforts. And then let's say in February, we come to the end of February, we circle back to this tracker. Maybe we do a little bit better. Maybe we save $70, but we spend, $20. Our child goes to another kid's birthday. We get them a small gift. So now we had 50 going into February. We added 70, so that's $120, but then we turned around and spent 20. So that's $100. And if you're keeping this money in a separate savings account, which I recommend, a lot of banks now that offer, especially high yield savings accounts, and the one that I recommend is Ally. We've been using them for a couple of years. That is where we keep all of our savings. And Ally lets you set up to 10 buckets. So it's perfect because that's literally what I call savings efforts. Some people use the term sinking funds. I prefer savings bucket. You can keep your savings efforts super organized if your bank offers something like that. So this would be what you would expect to see for the birthdays bucket, or whatever it is that you choose to kind of call it, or how it's structured with that bank. But you would expect to see $100. And so you would just repeat this throughout the year. And most likely what you're going to find is that when you hit the end of the year, maybe you're not at 500, but you've been continuously saving. And so you've been continuously able to kind of meet your needs. And that's your cue that for the next year, 500 is probably a great number. And that just kind of continuously saving throughout the year, that works out quite well. So that is how this tracker is structured and how I use it. So it's something that you fill in basically as soon as you start using the workbook or starting with your budget planner, and you would fill in all the buckets that you want to have set up. This is just the first page. There's also buckets 6 through 10 on a second spread, so you can fit up to 10 buckets in the Beautiful Budget Workbook. And, you're filling all of those in. And again, you're kind of setting these projected to save numbers based on what your budget can support. So if you know that you have like $300 to $400 extra per month that you can put towards savings, in any given month, you're going to want to check that you're at or below that $300 to $400. Don't pencil in that you're going to save $1,000 if you don't actually have $1,000 of wiggle room and discretionary income in your budget, right? That wouldn't make sense. So the budgeting kind of has to come first and get into a bit of a groove before this tracker can be filled in realistically. That's just kind of the savvy way to go about it. So this is how I keep track of savings efforts. The other thing, though, that I am wanting to bring in, because you ladies got me thinking when you mentioned, hey, like, what about envelopes for the full-size workbook, it got me thinking what it might look like to track savings buckets, maybe using envelopes and inserts and that sort of thing. So I designed just a little template for the disc punched envelopes, and it's got a little, you may not be able to see it very well, but it does have an area here where it is cut so that it's even easier to kind of reach in and grab, your cash. So this is the perfect size for cash. So I've got that design kind of ready to go, and these are just solid colored, but I'm curious kind of what your feedback is there. If, solid color is something preferred, or just something simple, and then maybe offering stickers so that you can label them. I don't know, I'm just kind of toying around with what that might look like. But another thing I was thinking, because the full size, it's just a larger size, so doing more of like a sheet like this where there are a few kind of envelopes on the page. So I've got 2 vertical and 1 horizontal here. I know it's a little tough to see, but let me pull that out there, tilt it so it's a little bit easier to see. But this is just, it's white cardstock, and then I've got vellum, which I've just been loving to work with vellum in my craft efforts lately, and some of the product designs. But it is laminated, and then of course I've disc punched it so that it would pop right in. But this way you could track, kind of 3 things at once, and made it to where, of course, where you can fit cash. And then I have these inserts that I sell in the shop, and that having that tab is really helpful because it makes it easy to pull out. But this would be where you could track the money that you are putting in and putting out. So I figure it would be cashless. Now I know some of you, maybe you do, kind of pull this out and you have a large purse and you carry the cash with you this way. I'm not sure. But if you're like me, the full size envelopes would be more for tracking like savings efforts. So using the tracker to say, okay, this is how much I added, this is what we pulled out, and you would do it cashless, right? You wouldn't actually keep the physical cash in here. So again, this is still kind of in design phase, and I'm looking to get feedback, but this is nice and sturdy because it's been laminated with a thick laminating pouch. And then these individual envelopes can just be, they can be pulled out, carried around, which is what makes those nice. And you see how I've kind of put them in here staggered, but just as easily, putting inserts in there. But it's tricky to do, like a full print design with these, like you see with the mini cash envelopes. It's just a little bit trickier, materials wise, and just kind of my personal kind of operations wise, that would be kind of tricky for me to implement. So it would need to be, solid colors, basic prints, vellum. I am able to print text kind of down here. So that way there could be, a nice black calligraphic font maybe here on each of the envelopes. That would be very easy to do. But these are potentially new handmade products that will hit the shop. Let me know what you think, whether they're used as true cash envelopes, just like you see here, or they're more for tracking savings efforts or even like debt payoff. I mean, it could go a lot of different ways. However it is that you'd like to use it, let me know your feedback in the comments. Soon I'll be sitting down to do the September budget closeout, and that is when I will circle back to my personal iteration of this tracker and get it updated. But I tend to get asked pretty often how to organize savings, and this is a great way to do that. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to tap that like button, hit subscribe if you're looking forward to more budgeting and wealth building content, and tap the bell to get notified when more videos drop. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.